dug up my whole backyard and made a kennel for his dog and put up a fence because the dog attacked me. And I think he cares more about me than the dog, I hope so.
So, what do you know about the Freemasons?
I know my father-in-law was one.
Oh,
He
really?
had a funeral the Masons did in a Lutheran church.
Oh, really?
I was surprised.
Hmm.
His funeral was a very nice funeral. The Lutheran pastor did a good job and the Masons did a good job.
Because I just read about that, and Masons put rings out.
I never thought it was satanic, because
That's what I mean.
my father-in-law was one. And he was the highest you could get.
That's my brother-in-law was that. And he was a devout Presbyterian.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And very good in church, I mean, as much as Connie and Bob.
Mason's book says.
I think it's almost like a lodge that I think it's almost like a lodge that these men go to and have fellowship together, and they don't realize the history of the Masons is rooted in maybe not so much.
I was thinking Jackie Gleason and then whatever it was he did with the mooses and he and mooses. Yeah, the mooses, and they go to their lodge and, you know, it's essentially just like a race night out. And then, you know, you get to wear a big Puma hat.
My father-in-law was a doctor, and he was a nice person. I mean, you know, as far as they didn't seem like bad men to me, but I tried to look
The
into it.
objection, I think, of the Lutheran Church is that they put the lodge above God.
Yeah.
The lodge is.
I don't think my father-in-law did
They
that.
have a lot of men, they just sit together.
Yeah, I think it's more like for the social aspect, and they don't really delve into the historic faith
Practices.
part of it.
You know, that book that we have there, and that's how they do their service and all that stuff. We won't be able to go to my brother-in-law's funeral if you guys prefer to do, because it's there.
Maybe you could bring some of that in, because I tried to do some research, and
Well,
I didn't
did
get.
you get the Lutheran thing on the lodge? We have a book that
Yeah.
the Lutherans stand against the lodge.
All right, and I could look.
There should be one. If not,
But I really don't think
I looked at one of the resources Brian gave me, and I didn't see
they get deep in and.
Christian scientists get sucked into it and then.
a whole lot to work with. So, but it's possible I skipped the important paragraph. So, so we'll go with at least with the presentation they give, and then if you have things you want to add to that from what you learned, and
whose interpretation is it?
so this is just general online research.
This general what?
Online research. So.
You really need to read that and watch. It's an eye-opener, and they quote things and people that have been in it and all that stuff.
Well, when they're initiated into it.
Yeah, I was thinking this is
That's
more.
what it's secret, yeah. Not allowed to tell you.
Oh, and I think that was the struggle with my research,
I think it's
is there's not very much they can tell. And so while some of this might seem kind of repetitious as we're going through it, you know, I didn't know how else to get to the different aspect of understanding the lodge. So, so we got an understanding how, at least today, it seems like people join it more so for the social aspect, but there's a time for being a part of it where we're pretty, so what you guys are saying, satanic things going on. So,
I mean, like my dad belonged to Eagles and Elks and all that, but the Masons go deeper if you want it to go deeper.
Yeah, they also have kind of just a lodge that's good things for the community, as far as I know.
and that's,
The Freemasons.
It doesn't have
That's-
anything beyond it.
Well, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I think there's some of them that are good Christians and maybe don't adhere
Mhm.
to the satanic part of it. But
But they
maybe,
have to swear and all that. I mean, it's a big deal. I had a girlfriend that was in the Rainbow. And we were best friends for 40 years, and she still wouldn't tell me anything.
Hmm.
Susie, went with her friends with the Rainbow Girl things, and she hated it because they have to dress and all these.
They were formals, and
They were
dances and all.
Yeah, she didn't like
But
it.
they also have get into it, I guess, and you never know.
Right.
If it wasn't bad, why is it just a secret? Why does it have to be? And I mean, they were afraid to say
Right.
it. They know.
Oh, really? And it's interesting. The only answer I could have to the secrets was that it was like watching. It's like they didn't want to spoil others who are going through the journey to just tell them what happens. So kind of like
What's the
you letting other people watch the movie without telling them what the movie's about. People. So.
Second degree, which is the highest
I don't
degree.
keep track. Just know right.
That's a lot of things, a lot of things to go through. But I imagine, because the impression I was given, it was kind of like Boy Scouts. You have these levels, and you get through things. You know, you have your achievements along the way. But
That's the social. And
Yeah,
that's why people like to go to the meetings and everything, because they feel good about all this good stuff they're doing. You know?
And they do
Yeah.
a lot of good
And they
things
do.
for the community and whatever.
The thing is, if they put their priority in what they're,
Yeah,
that's when they really.
and the higher you go, I think the more secret stuff you get into, and the more you swear to this, that, and the other thing, and pretty soon it looks like.
Well, it's kind of, yeah, yes.
all right, that's what it's making me think of.
Kind of like the Mormons on the
Right.
surface. They don't look that bad.
No.
They do a lot of good things.
They do a lot of
But
things.
don't get too deep. It's scary.
And they get sick, you know, you don't cross them after you get to a certain point, you don't walk around talking about it. I know Greg does all these meetings and secret squirrel stuff.
So you're saying it's the
When he got that big into it and started going to all these meetings all the time, and then the FaceTime stuff now too. And you know, it's all secret, like, oh, I have to go to that meeting. Keep going, unless there's somewhere, so we wouldn't hear him.
I was reading about some actor and he was an LDS and they say that people are leaving the LDS church more now than they ever have been.
huh.
Because they really don't see substantial proof that the Book of Mormon
Everyone.
is legitimate.
Hmm.
And, you know,
Now, we're Christians are
They-
finding out all kinds
they
of
think
stuff.
they're worshiping
It's good.
false idols or whatever, and they're just leaving the church because of that.
It's chilling some of this.
Pastor Deputy, when Bobby had become a Mormon for a while there, he wasn't a true Mormon in his heart, he was a Mormon for his business. Pastor Deputy had me read the God Makers. Scary stuff. I couldn't get into heaven all by myself. My husband would have to summon me, and I'd never get there. It's just unbelievable, some of the things they believe.
Yeah, it's always cuts, and whenever it has to be secret, I'm very suspicious. I mean, these Christian scientists and
Yeah, it's like we'd say nobody can be here when we're reciting the Apostle Creed or something like that.
like secrets.
Our secret.
But let's go ahead and that's right. And get to some of the similar things like that at the end, which we're definitely not going to be able to get to today, unless we cruise through this. So,
So that Christ was the person, lots of them believe that he's a real person, but they don't believe that he died for our sins and that he can redeem us. Isn't that the whole difference between being a Christian and one of these?
They think they're Christians, though. They
well,
claim.
let's go through this. Let's go through this. You can hold on to that. Let's go through this first. And so Kathy, what are the basic practices of the Freemasons? Just go out and tell you want to pass.
What do you know about the Freemasons? What are the basic practices of the Freemasons? Freemasons practice their tradition mainly through regular meetings in local lodges, where members participate in ceremonies, rituals, and educational activities that promote morality, charity, and personal development. Core lodge activities. Freemason lodges hold meetings, often divided into business matters like electing new members and organizing charitable activities, and ceremonial or ritual aspects. The central ritual component involves progressing through 3 degrees: entered apprentice, fellow craft, and master mason. Each degree involves formal ceremonies where moral lessons are taught using symbolic language and tools. Meetings are sometimes followed by social gatherings such as formal dinners called agapes or festive boards to foster camaraderie.
Rituals and you want me to go on?
Yeah, go ahead.
Rituals and symbolism. Freemasons use allegorical ceremonies and symbolical tools such as the square compasses and trowel, drawn from stone masonry to teach moral and ethical lessons. Rituals include taking new obligations and being entrusted with secret knowledge like passwords and signs which serve as educational and bonding experiences. Principles and ethical values. Freemasons adhere to a code emphasizing honor, personal responsibility, the brotherhood of man, and charity. While members must believe in a supreme being, Freemasonry is not itself a religion and remains non-sectarian and non-political. Principles include social responsibility, respect for law, and equality among members regardless of social status. Charitable and social work. Charity is a foundational practice, with Freemason lodges often involved in fundraising and volunteering for their communities. Members are expected to support the welfare of others and contribute to the community improvement.
Oh. Go on and go ahead. Yeah.
Can I get skipped, please?
Yeah, sure.
Initiation and membership requirements. Philosophically, Freemasons teaches the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of mankind. An applicant generally must be an adult male, profess belief in a higher power, and be of good moral character. Freemasonry centers on ceremonial progression through degrees, moral education by allegory and symbolism, charitable works, and the cultivation of ethical principles in members' daily lives. Why were the Grand Masonic Lodges built in 1770? The Grand Masonic Lodge, specifically the premier Grand Lodge of England, was built in 1717 to provide unity, regulation, and public structure to what had previously been independent and informal Masonic lodges. Historical context. By the early 1700s, multiple independent Masonic lodges already existed in London, meeting in local taverns. The climate after the Jacobite rising in 1715 and the ascension of King George I, saw societies seeking greater structure and order, which influenced the movement toward organizing Freemasonry on a broader and more unified basis. Reasons for establishment. 4 London lodges met on June 24th, 1717, at the Goose and Gridiron Ale House, constituted themselves a Grand Lodge to host annual assemblies and coordinate activities.
Yeah, it's an old social
Masonry was growing quickly, and the members saw a need to distinguish Freemasonry from other clubs and societies, provide governance, and offer legitimacy to new lodges as London's population was booming. The creation of the Grand Lodge allowed the election of the Grand Master, the codification of rules and rituals, and the issuance of charters for new lodges, turning Masonic practice into an organized society instead of a loose association. Broader impact. The former Grand Lodge held public events to raise the order's profile, attract members of the nobility, and become a moral emulation of Britain and later worldwide. The Grand Masonic Lodge was built in 1717 to edify, regulate, and legalize the growing movement of Freemasonry, giving it a lasting organization and broader cultural influence.
Is that all your? Oh, I was gonna say. Mind if we keep going? Because I feel like some of it, the way I put this here is questions are starting to rise, but as we keep going, those questions should be answered. So, but I couldn't figure out how else to do this. So 4, how have their practices and purposes changed over the years? Freemason practices and purpose have evolved significantly since their origins as medieval stone mason guilds, adapting to social, cultural, and philosophical changes over the centuries. Origins and early practices. Freemasonry began as operative lodges of stonemasons focused on regulating the craft and safeguarding trade secrets. As building projects declined, lodges started admitting non-masons as speculative members, leading to a focus on moral teachings and allegorical rituals rather than craftsmanship. Early rituals involved practical symbols, oaths, and transmission of signs and passwords, initially as qualifications for work and later for symbolic fraternal purposes. Transition and expansion. In the 18th century, the 18th century saw the rise of organized Grand Lodges, standardization of rituals, and a shift toward moral, philosophical self-improvement, fellowship, and charity as core purposes. Rituals evolved from simple craft, customs, to structured ceremonies with 3 main degrees: entered apprentice, fellow craft, master mason. Freemasonry became intertwined with Enlightenment ideals, welcoming men of diverse religious backgrounds and increasing its influence around the world. Modern era. In the 19th and 20th centuries, Freemasonry broadened its charitable activities and became more focused on service to the community as public welfare programs grew. Membership requirements shifted. While still requiring belief in a supreme being, inclusively expanded, and women's lodges were eventually recognized, though tradition remains male only in some branches. Controversies and efforts towards transparency have led to open engagement with public and collaboration with non-Masonic charities in recent decades. The symbolic and ceremonial aspects remain, but their meaning has shifted from professional qualifications to personal development, ethical reflection, and mutual support. Freemasonry practices have shifted from practical trade union to a global fraternal order focused on personal improvement, moral guidance, philanthropy, community engagement, reflecting changing the social norms and needs over time. So thank you for writing those few pages with me. So if I were to go back to the beginning here, so the activities, from my research, it sounds like each lodge has its own set of activities. So the 3 basic ones are there: entered apprentice, fellow craft, and master mason. But as Anna was saying, there's 32. There's 32 degrees of achievements to go through. 32nd, yeah. So
based on Satanism or whatever, but I don't.
So for understand, there's every lodge has their own set of achievements to go through, but ultimately, there's some of them I think just do 3, and some of them are more involved and have 32.
I know this local lodge here was more social than anything else. The girls participated in dances and wearing formals and whatever, and the wives participated, but the men were the actual masons. You can't be a female and be a mason.
Right. Right.
Captain, the one that Barbara's husband
Hmm.
belonged to the lodge.
Huh.
And the women were help with everything.
Yeah, they were just like,
Organized.
yeah, a social group that the women and the children even participated, but not in the secretive
Right.
32nd degree, you know. That was probably satanic. I have no idea what it was because it was a secret. They
All right.
didn't, you know, they didn't let on what they were doing.
Hmm.
I don't think there's a lot of young men in the Masons anymore. I don't think
Is
so.
it a dying? That's
It
good.
could be.
Especially since it's
Yeah. I haven't heard any news about the lodges and what they're up to
yeah, that Mason Lodge
in
is
terms of
gone
new
now.
current generation.
Well, they, few, just like our church, few of them.
Yeah, it's probably a sign of the time.
So, and it says rituals and symbolism, and so you hear that they use basically the tools of stonemasonry and put them to fit co- yeah. I got that at the end here.
A lot of our.
There's so many prominent people that you don't think of it as evil per se. It's just,
Right.
It's not saying people.
no, but their participation in an evil organization doesn't make them knowledgeable of that part of it. Maybe they, you know, just felt like it was a gum lodge.
It's like all of it.
Right.
Half of it scare you to not tell, and the other half is, you know, if you don't do this, you gotta go to hell, or whatever. Some other kind of, but it's just, they just suck you in.
And then, so the principles and ethical values, as I mentioned before, I'd imagine at this time when it was created, it was the trendy thing to do. How do I better myself with the people
Especially if you're.
around me, especially if you're what?
Politically minded.
How the president's got involved.
Right. So,
Almost like like a labor union, because they use the tools, the
Right.
simplest tools.
It is, it's much like a labor union, I think, you know,
Right.
and
They
then,
can get pretty deep too.
and you get all these friends, and if you don't, they join, you know, everybody's against you, and
Right.
it just becomes a thing.
The labor union, people in the union felt they had to be democratic because the Democratic Party supported the labor union. And,
Life could be very difficult if you didn't join.
no, no, in my,
Unions are real strong, and everybody joined, and it was.
the Democrats have changed so much through the years, so they're not like the ones that
Right.
supported the hard working people.
right.
It's funny how they change.
Are you?
They don't change in no time.
And it's interesting what changes people too. I think if we can kind of tie that in there, like for example, the issue of slavery. Oh gosh, for understand, it was a taxing issue that turned the Democrats from being pro-slavery to starting more appreciative of all races, and so I think they had more of a fair tax type of thing. I can't remember, but it was something subtle. It wasn't specifically racist. It was just something. Hey, here's a good cause to be, yeah, following for, and so. And then ever since then, they're like, oh, well, now we start having the minority vote here. So why don't we continue to foster the care of and the need, or foster the minority needs? So, and correct, and so that, like you said, it's politics, and so that was the main change. It wasn't the Democrats never had a moment of, let's start focusing on caring for the minorities. No, it was just, or you seem to be getting a favor of them, finding favor in them. Let's see how we can continue to work with this. So similarly, if you go down to the bottom of the second page, so where it says, why were the Masonic Lodges built in 1717, and the historical contents, the second point, the climate after the Jacobite Rising of 1715, the ascension of King George the First saw society seeking after a greater structure and order, which influenced the movement toward organization of Freemasonry on a broader, more unified basis. So, again, it's just all the take of everything going on within that decade and just put it in 2 sentences there. And so what's going on at this time? From understand, there's a huge change in government structure, and there's a simplification of the process. And so people are looking for a place. They're looking for a place to have a say and to and find order. Because, again, people that had their places before no longer have it. So where can I exercise authority? Where's a place I can somewhat exercise authority? Even though this doesn't seem to give the impression that any, this isn't a political party. This isn't, setting up a new state. But in terms of working with people and how do I find my place in everything, the lodges at this time, the Grand Masonic Lodge was understood to be a source of that. Well, if I can't be involved in politics, well, then I can be involved in this lodge to make a difference in the world I'm at. But I guess that's the next.
So people kind of think of them as helping society, and you don't think of it as satanic.
Correct. Correct.
It's just not God and Jesus, as we think of
And-
it.
It's not, they believe in a higher power, but
Yeah, so correct. They just have to believe there's some idea that
there's somebody out there somewhere.
they're serving under. And from what I understand, through their practices, they'll specifically not mention Jesus in their practices. They might even quote a verse from the Bible that references Jesus, and they'll figure out a way to leave that part out.
Well, that's what they do on the TV programs, that they're talking about things that are not politically correct, that are in the Bible, but they
I
don't
see.
want to say that. It's just like you eliminate the part that offends your.
Right.
Anyway,
And so, essentially, what they're doing is they make it sound like it's for a greater cause, but ultimately, the greater cause is whatever they think the good work is. And so, again, where's the focus being shifted off of? Where's their source for hope? Our source for hope is in Jesus, but where's their source for hope?
Their works.
So it's their works and in man, and essentially, it's whoever is at the top of all these leaders. And so you got whatever a broken man thinks is good, right, and true. Doesn't matter what the Bible says. It's what this guy he's been able to go up 32 levels. He must know what he's talking about. And so anytime when any person's placed in power, there's always a sinful temptation to abuse it to his own selfish desires. And so, yeah, I understand. All right, so I don't think it's as there's no 32 levels, but there's right, but there's a structure.
Somehow they convince these people that going higher than the Mormons or the Masons or whatever it is making them a better person.
Correct.
So that's what they're striving to. Their works are gonna give them.
And all the videos and images I saw, it's interesting how it feels political when you walk in. You know, there's, it seems like you're walking into an army, or you're walking among army. Everyone's just supposed to stand still. Everyone has their rank with their medals. Yeah,
It's very
and
regimented.
correct. It's very rigid, and there's a sense of you just follow the order, or else you're not a true Mason. And it seems like the hope is in the order that that is man-made, and so.
You shouldn't have to earn your way to heaven means that you negated Christ and his sacrifice.
And it does give you that impression that you need to earn your way.
If you have to do it, why do you die? I mean, if you have to earn your way, and they do. I mean, they believe. But that's why you go up all these.
But I think the impression I'm getting is they're not focused so much on salvation, especially if they're not including Christ in their conversations. They're just focused on good works of man, and that's really where the issue is. That why should Lutherans not be associating with that group? Not only does it just welcome everybody, but it's having the purpose. It's having the person focus on their purpose of good works being the source for hope. You know, these charity events. Some people say this is just a front. One Catholic priest said that Masons hate Christ, which is quite an interesting way to look at it. But again, if you keep pushing Christ aside anytime he comes up and say, no, we're not talking about that. Well, for the Christian, how is the Christian supposed to act?
I still think some of the Masons don't realize that. They don't even realize that's their way. Yeah. They
All right.
probably.
That they're so low.
I don't know how you can go to church on Sunday and believe that the Masons are above Christ or whatever they do believe. It just doesn't make sense to me.
They put them on an equal level.
Yeah.
Well,
But
they put God the Father above Christ, though, because they're not allowing Christ to be talked about that. So it is an interesting concept. You could say, well, we leave something out, okay, but if, you know, as a Christian, again, if we're supposed to understand through Christ and his work and how God's saving work reflects our loving work, if you leave that out, well, then you're not really doing Christian work. Kind of like that word humanism used before.
Not
That
even
you're
part of Christianity.
We're supposed to be good because we love Christ, because we want to make Christ and God happy with us. as much
well,
as
we do good work because Christ loved us first.
Right, but they're doing it because they can skip that part. Just earn
Right?
it.
They're doing it for their own glory, not Christ's
They're not
glory.
doing it because of Christ, they're doing it for their own,
They're competitive.
yeah.
They want to rise to the
They're
top.
very
Right. And so, where I'm somewhat graceful in all this is that where in the world today do we see people be able to have a place and a rank in their community?
politics.
Yeah.
Somewhat,
Governor.
but but for the common people, I guess I should say.
Oh, that's why people join teams. I mean, you go on a team because you're part of the family of that, whatever team you are.
So you're thinking sports?
Yeah.
So sports has definitely gotten elevated I mean, they
Some people say that's become satanic. Well, and I guess if you watch the Super Bowl every year, you could you could agree with that.
Amen. Horrible.
No.
Beautiful and fireworks and now it's just slime.
And it's possible that change, that shift, is possible what's gone into the lodges as well. Does that make sense? Like it came out with good intentions. All right, let's be a good stoneworkers, right? And here's the practices, and you know, it's geometry is a wonder within itself. You know. All right. It'd be interesting to see if there were stone masons involved with building cathedrals. Those things that you see in Europe.
Well, a lot of times they go to the ceremony when you lay the cornerstone or do any of that
Yeah.
stuff. Masons are involved in that.
Huh.
So that's part of their
Right. And so amazing that the Mason lodges have had been a source for, I mean, providing structure. Yes. Yes. Correct. Correct. And so it's interesting. So is their charitable work just a face to this secret, I guess you could use the word society, this secret work that the Masons do? I mean, it could very well be. That's the impression I've been getting. It's interesting how I've learned those scammers that you get phone calls from that don't do good work. The interesting thing is a lot of times there will be a phone. Yeah, there will be what is it called? A phone room, a telecommunicating room for people making phone calls. But that's legit customer service work that the front half is doing. And then you got a room to the criminal work that they're doing. And apparently somehow when they show the government what they're doing, it looks like they've shown them everything. They've seen everything, but apparently there's another side of the room that right. And so, you know, is the charitable work just one side of the book to the other work, that the secret work that they're doing? I mean, it could very well be. You know, I think, like I said, where the grace I find this is that this lodge system provides, it tells people an order and a rank where they're at in their involvement. And so, because I think, for understand, even today, men still struggle to find their sense of purpose. Because, truth be told, you say, well, you just go to work and go home and, you know, take care of your family. You know, is that not enough? And in some places, well, you know, if I'm not the boss of a business, well, then am I lacking in my, am I less than someone who does own a business? And is one business better than another? Is a plumbing business better than any better than a general contractor? You know, they both are blue collar jobs. They both work with their hands, but one comes home smelling like poop every day. Well, the other one comes home clean, but probably doesn't make as much money. You know, or at least doesn't come home smelling like poop. Maybe just sawdust. You know, you'd rather have sawdust in your house than poop. So, you know, why am I getting all this? Because, again, this for Europe, I mean, not Europe, for England, you know, none of us are English here. So, again, we have a hard time figuring out where does this all fit in. You have some English in you? Okay. So, but the English apparently are in this time, 1717, are having a hard time finding their place and being a renovated politically time. And this new system, apparently they were able to carry out for a few centuries, that where people still find value today. And when you talked about the creation of America, well, obviously there's value in it today because the Americans took some of that when they were thinking about how should this country run. So I think I'll leave that as a cliffhanger for next week, as it's already 3 o'clock. But is there anything that just cannot wait till next week? If you notice, I think the next topic is, how does the Elks Lodge come into play in all of this?
What about the Shriners? I don't know anything about
So
the
as Connie was saying, the Shriners were our type of Masons.
All right?
A type of Masons.
Oh, I didn't.
So
I know they wear those vests and they
Mhm.
have those little cars.
Mhm.
I know.
Right.
Pastor Jeffkey, I said the Shriners did a lot of good. And they helped so many children, and Danny Thomas with and I used to donate when I had a little bit of money, just little bits to them. And Pastor Jeffkey said they have so much clerical and people that the money doesn't really go. A lot of it goes to high much better.
it goes to staff instead of the
And I
patients.
wondered how he knew that, but I just did not know anything.
Right.
The Red Cross a long time before we did.
He
Huh.
thought that they were,
investigated for the money all going to management.
Oh,
that's what Pastor Jeffkey said about the
I mean, I
Shriners.
don't know if a lot of kids do Shriners. I mean,
They made our hospital, my daughter, massive surgery on her knees.
yeah, and they really do.
I think they do more help than he would like to admit, but I wouldn't argue with
I
him.
mean, in Chester, we had 2 little kids with club feet that they just whooshed, they did everything. They took them to Reno and fixed everything up.
Didn't they have so much fun in those cars?
I was scared they're gonna lose control.
Ran into some. They're going on the parade.
You when they're in those cars.
All right. Well, shall we close in prayer? All right. Heavenly Father, we do thank you for this study. It's interesting how organizations change over time for one reason or another. But Lord, we do thank you for the Lutheran Church to remind us that our hope is through Christ alone, and everything, including loving our neighbor, should stem off of that. And so, Lord, we pray that the church does seem to be does help to be a support system and provide a sense of purpose to the people who come through, so that people may indeed find hope and the blessings of loving others like Jesus did, as opposed to people looking within themselves to do good works to others. In Jesus' name, amen.